Ghana Tech Lab, being the implementer of this project, initiated by the MasterCard Foundation, we seek to embark on this project to help connect the dots with respect to the various actors within the communities to create a linkage of who needs what and how to get access to in terms of knowledge and resources in view to help them scale their businesses in respect to entrepreneurs and also succeed as the main goal, whilst also creating jobs for people.
Ghana Tech Lab is an ecosystem tech hub that offers competent digital skills training, seeding innovation, and growth of startups. The Tech Lab is established through the e-Transform project under the Ministry of Communications Ghana with funding from the World Bank. The Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Mapping Program is a nationwide project forming a part of the Pathways to Sustainable Employment, PACE, a project funded by MasterCard Foundation under the Young Africa Works initiative. This initiative aims to create 30 million jobs in Africa by 2030. We believe that building a stronger ecosystem will allow entrepreneurs and institutions to quickly find the knowledge and resources they need to succeed. This is one main reason we sought out to undertake this mapping program. The ecosystem mapping activities included mapping the ecosystem through populating and continuous updates of the interactive platforms, profiling startups, ecosystem builders and enablers, need assessment of hubs, startups, enablers, and other areas of interest relative to the 6 focal pillars. The mapping program sought out to identify, analyze, and visualize the key actors and players in the various cities on this journey. For that to happen, the methodology used for the program was guided by 6 pillars for proper segmentation of engagements. On a national scale, our mapping program interacted with over 1,000 companies across the country, ranging from governmental bodies, popular businesses, financial firms, media organizations, educational sectors, and support and infrastructure systems. Our holistic data collection led to key findings across the 6 pillars, aiming to describe the entrepreneurial ecosystem nature. These pillars were to aid in the proper segmentations of our engagements across 11 regions of Ghana, starting from the northern parts down to the southern parts of the country. Here are the national summaries from the pillar leads.
So our engagement, having traveled around the country for the policy pillar, centered on being able to identify various support services that the government is providing and how policy organizations are working to ensure that entrepreneurial ecosystems are thriving within their various spaces. And some of the key items that stood out were the fact that, one, the government is working hard to ensure local economic development committees are set up around throughout the country by the end of this year to facilitate local level entrepreneurial growth. Another key item that stood out was the fact that public offices, you have a minimum of 1 day to enjoy or get most of your services, and there are some you have a maximum of 3 months in order to get your services. The 3 months usually comes in when you're looking for certification for your products, that's through the regulatory organizations. Interestingly, in terms of public financing, it was realized that most of the youth who are beneficiaries of various public funding, for them to start initiatives rather end up misappropriating the fund. They rather use it for different initiatives instead of rather investing in the various businesses for the original purpose for which the monies were given. And this was indicated from largely identified through Maslow. Most public finance institutions, majorly the NBSSI, that's the National Board for Small Scale Industries, and the MASLOC, that's Micro and Small Loan Center, under the Office of the President, provided funding to a large pool of people, but realized that it was more sustainable and had a higher impact providing funding to women rather than giving it out to men and also giving out to the youth. So some of the findings that we had from the policy side of our engagement as a pillar was the fact that as a country, Ghana is pushing hard to have local economic development committees created at the district assembly level, that's the Metropolitan Municipal and District Assembly, by the end of 2020. And this is very interesting because you realize that this is being pushed to ensure entrepreneurial growth at the local level and would really create a lot of employment and support a lot of entrepreneurs. Additionally, the National Commission for Civic Education was identified as an organization that would really be able to help push for awareness at the local level on what local stakeholders, entrepreneurs, and communities can demand from the government or the various local government authorities. And they have a program that could be streamlined alongside various entrepreneurial initiatives to ensure that local youth and people engage to propose policies and initiatives that their various assemblies could adopt inside their medium-term development plans, or even facilitated through their members of parliament for presentation at parliament to be designed or factored into a national policy document.
Generally, on the national level, it was noticed that from the shake-up in the financial sector in the country, it has deterred most financial institutions as well as investors from supporting startups and then local entrepreneurs. This is because of the fear of high risk of failure and then their default in payment, which is going to lead to bad debts for all of them. That's going to cause, in the long run, going to cause a strain on their institutions. It's going to also be a problem for investors. So with that, most of the startups, if they feel that your idea is not feasible enough for them, they are hardly supporting startups, which is given the growth rate of startups or entrepreneurs in the country, keeping them at a low pace. Yes, and then, but with the institutions that are still supporting startups, they have special loans given out to them. Some are also willing to give them mentorship programs, entrepreneurial programs, which will help them, and then all the financial literacy needed for them to be able to venture into a business, or all the knowledge they need before they decide to go into a particular firm or industry. We're going to engage with international banks, local banks, rural banks, microfinances, savings and loans, local investors, venture capital firms, as well as fund management. For the international banks, we noticed that you hardly find them in some of the regions, especially in the northern sector. You find just a few of the banks, international banks, situated there, and as well as the local banks, but the rural banks are widespread all over the country. That applies to the microfinances and credit unions. It's hard to get angel investors or local investors because in the northern sectors and some of the other regions, because most of them are situated in the country's capital. So engaging with them on that level or the local level is a bit difficult because you do not get to locate them in their regions. With the venture capital, we got a few to engage with, but the dominant banks in all the regions were the rural banks, the local banks, as well as the microfinances. We were able to locate angel investors in the Bono region, some in the northern region, as well as so all the northern sectors, that is Narilugu, Wa, Tamale, and then Bogatanga. So yeah, in the Bono region, and then some in other regions as well. That's the Volta, and then when it comes to the southern sector, western region.
Human capital related institutions that were focused on includes tertiary institutions, second cycle institutions, skilled and unskilled worker groups like dressmakers association, carpenters association. Then we also looked out for serial or successful entrepreneurs who can serve as mentors for the younger generation. Then we also looked at how best we can help them all to work together. And we found that the hubs were one of the great places for them all to meet and then exchange ideas and help to improve themselves. The top challenges we realized in relation to human capital is the fact that most people find data to be very expensive, and as such are not able to learn on their own through a mobile device. Smartphones too are also relatively expensive to most people compared to their average income levels. And for example, in senior high schools in Ghana, mobile devices are still considered illegal, and as such, students are unable to utilize it to the full, learn from it, and then find a way of using it to improve their lives. We were able to engage with over 350 institutions through the various aspects from tertiary to secondary to worker groups. These factors identified runs through all the regions. We can see the same problems from the south to the north, east to west of Ghana. Thanks to the free senior high school program, there's a fast rate of development, the human capital pillar. You see a lot of people who did not have opportunities to go to second cycle schools now taking advantage of it to improve themselves. And this is really helping them. They are meeting new friends, they are sharing experiences, and they are working together to better their own lives.
On the aspect of culture, a challenge that the cultural institutions that we spoke to face is that culture is gradually dying out. That is, the unique Ghanaian culture is gradually dying out in Ghana, and because of the adulteration of foreign influences. And most stakeholders in the cultural industry that we spoke to were very keen on the fact that attention has to be paid to our culture so that we would be able to preserve culture for future generations. So it turns out to be that though the cultural influences in some of these regions affect business, the cultural aspect and the way of life of people was something that is gradually dying down.
One of the key things we really found out was the size of the popular businesses and the small-scale industries across the nation in the capital cities. So almost every capital city that we visited, we realized that the reason for setting up businesses was to just provide a means of livelihood. So we found out a number of provision stores. Basically on the streets, some businesses have been set up to just provide a service. So one of the key things we also looked at as the accessible market pillar was to try and identify businesses that have been digitalized. In a sense, they are IT inclined, they're on social media, they have websites. So we wanted to track that IT inclined nature of businesses. From our interaction, we found out that most of the businesses are not really IT inclined. They don't really have that knowledge about IT, especially in the northern regions as well. But when you come to Accra, it's a dominant thing. It's also something that is also growing. People are getting more on social media to advertise their businesses. And they don't naturally even need an office space. They can even operate on these mediums, these social media mediums. So that was one of the also key things that we also found.
So generally for the national level, I would say that there's less support structures for entrepreneurs or startups across the country, because majority are so within the support value chain, a typical example is there are a lot of skills training, but there's not, let's say, the next phase of the support. Example, to fund them to start their business or to give them the requisite support needed in general to meet up. So there are lots of individuals willing to do stuff, but they don't have the requisite. Against that background, we also observe that there are lots of repetition of ideas, that people just start something without having a blueprint in what they are doing. So when they get stuck and they don't have the drive to continue, they are more money focused than going through the process. So it truncates the process in that space. So within the space, a lot of development agencies are doing their best to create the enabling environment for startups like the GIZ, the MasterCard Foundation, British Council, and a few others to help in this space. But it's just for a period. So we also observe that most of the youth within this space also have a different mindset when it comes to entrepreneurship. So they need more support in terms of skills training in view to understand what the entrepreneurship case is, because people are taking the entrepreneurship path as an escape route looking for jobs to do. So more like, so we have a lot of aspirational entrepreneurs as against a purpose-driven entrepreneurs in achieving their set goals, whilst creating jobs for the multitudes. So some get the support, but don't make use of the support. So those who that need the support don't get access to the support. So it creates that bridge of gap that we are trying to see how to work it out for it.